And we're live. Hoping it's a good connection today. Hi, everybody. As per usual, I'm going to talk a little bit, sip a little water, and welcome you to Geek Speaks Greek. Geek Speaks Greek is the thrice weekly live cast I do on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. In each episode, I'm the geek, George O'Connor, clearly speaking English and not Greek. The Greek I'm speaking in reference to is Greek mythology. In each episode of Geek Speaks Greek, we take a closer look at a character from Greek mythology, be they goddess, god, hero, or monster. Today, I'm pretty excited to report we're doing a monster. It's been a bit. Well, actually, it's been since Monday. But before that, it had been a bit since we did a monster. We've done tons of goddesses, whole bunch of gods, whole bunch of heroes just recently. And we were really neglecting the monster side of things, so now we're really getting into it. And today, we're going to be doing Cerberus. But before I get into today's thing, if you've been watching for a while, you know that I have the best fans in the world. I really do. And that I get tons and tons of great mail sent. People send me their drawings. Sometimes they do like Lego sculptures like that one. There's been a few poems. There's been some really amazing stuff that's been sent this way. And I like to start off each episode of Geek Speaks Greek just taking a few moments to share some of the pieces I've gotten. I'm going to take a sip of water because I have a weird thing in my throat right now. It's good water. Okay. So first up, we have a couple of paintings. They're paintings. They have color. A couple of drawings from Elia. She drew. I just love this one. This is Perseus and Andromeda. Look how cute. Look at the way he's kind of shuffling his feet and he's got his hands behind his back and they all surrounded by the loves. Like, I like this one. It's not often we actually get like a love story that we can actually support in Geek Speaks Greek, and this is a nice one. Yeah, he comes down, he sees the fair maiden about to be eaten by a giant monster, and he does something about it. He turns the monster into stone, or maybe just temporarily into stone, because we talked. By the way, this harkens back to Monday's episode where we did Cetus, the sea serpent. And Andromeda is the Ethiopian princess who Cetus was going all set to eat until Perseus flew down with the head of Medusa and turned Cetus into a big rock. And so I love that picture. Elia, that's great. And then, this is cool. And I think this is a first. Elia also did a painting of our beloved goddess of love, Aphrodite, on a rock. The description said a rock painting. I'm like, what's a rock painting? And I looked, I'm like, I get what a rock painting is now. How cool is that? I love that idea. I also love they do that maybe this rock just lasts for millions and millions of years, and like sometime in the far, far future when people aren't people anymore, but they're evolved from like bugs, they find this. They're like, ooh, where is this? I mean, that's pretty cool. Ilya, thank you so much for sending that. Let's see what else we have here today. Oh, this is interesting. This is from Sarah. We actually showed a piece of artwork from her best friend, Jake. Last Monday, Jake drew a picture of the lion of Nemea, the Nemean lion. And today, she sent a picture of the Catoblepus. What's the Catoblepus, you ask? I'm glad you asked. So you can actually see the Catoblepus has made a big one-panel appearance so far in Olympians. The Catoblepus was a type of like kind of buffalo. People think it was maybe really like a wildebeest. You guys know like those creatures? But in ancient Greek times, they believed that the Catoblepus was this big, it was like a bull thing, and its head was so heavy it couldn't lift it, so it was always looking down, which was really good, because depending on the source, sometimes it's, if you looked in its eyes, you would turn to stone. Sometimes it had poisonous breath because it ate poisonous plants all day, like having garlic breath or something. The basic gist of it is that people are like, it's best this thing does look at you because somehow or another you're going to die. And that was the Catoblepus. So there we have, you can see the horns, you can see, oh, it even has red eyes, which is pretty cool, because actually one of the ancient descriptions does specifically mention the Catoblepus having red eyes. So Sarah, that's super cool. And then Sarah's best friend Jake also wrote in again, and this time he sent in a picture. Well, this is interesting. You know how like we have Megan who has her own hypothetical family she's created with Hermes and Athena? This is the son of Ares and Athena. I'm like, that guy's got to be a good fighter. I want to know how that happens, though, because I feel like Athena and Ares, like, really just, they don't really have a lot in common. They're like, I don't know, I guess we could have a kid, maybe. I mean, really, Athena's not really much of a kid giver. Look at that, like, what a great drawing, though. That's a great job, man. Thank you so much for sending that in, Jake. And let's see what else we got here today. Oh, this one I really like. So this is from Jamie. Jamie is the latest of the people to do the very clever thing where she writes the words backwards so you can see it. She made a little joke. It's a little hard to see because it's in pencil, but I'll hold it up. She made a little joke about the quarantine where you see this is a picture of all the Greek gods, right? But it's only, if you look closely, it's only the second doji Olympians that are wearing masks. Because I think we've seen a lot of times some of the older generation has been really hesitant to do the right thing and put on a mask. They're like, nobody tells me what to do. And so, I guess this is the case. They're like, Uncle Poseidon, please put on a mask. He's like, no, I want to breathe water germs in everybody. And like Apollo's like, no, man, I'm the god of plagues. Trust me, wear a mask. And this is a great drawing of it. I hope you end up posting this somewhere where people can take a look at it and really absorb the detail, because it's really something that needs to be seen. It's really great. Or maybe I'll post it. I don't know. I got a lot of stuff to post lately, so I don't know if I can get a chance to do that. Jamie, thank you so much. You're a very talented artist. Now this one is from Yehi. And again, building off of what we saw on Monday when we did Cetus, this is such a cool drawing that I wish it was in my actual book of Athena, where I tell the story of Perseus and Andromeda. Look at this viewpoint. First off, also wrote it backwards. Very clever. It's Theseus. He's holding aloft the sword that he used to cut off Medusa's head. He's holding Medusa. He's carrying off Andromeda to safety. She's on his back. In the background, you could see the giant rock that was Cetus. Look at how cool this perspective is. And you could see the curvature of the earth, like they're up so high. This is like I want to put this panel in Athena. I want to go back and call my publisher and be like, can I put this panel in? Like, you didn't draw it. I'm like, I don't care. This is such a great panel. And the colors are beautiful. Everyone go follow Zehi on Instagram. She puts a lot of her stuff. It's Dora Soul 89, I think. Yeah, he's here. Maybe if you could just put your information or just say, hey, this is me, so people could follow you, because everyone should. Her stuff's amazing. Now, we have a couple of drawings from Gus. Now, first, with the Cetus episode, I talked about how when I was a little guy, I was very upset about this. I saw Clash of the Titans, and I loved it. It was a great movie in many ways, but the myths were really weird. I used to ever tell people, well, he didn't actually fight the Kraken. He really fought Cetus, the sea monster. I was like, yeah, whatever, George. Well, Gus drew an amazing picture inspired by Clash of the Titans. There's Andromeda tied up. There's the Kraken. I mean, look at his abs. And there's Theseus. Never Theseus. There's Perseus on top of Pegasus. And we have a little, as is a bit of a habit on this show, we have a little Helios poking in there. So it's like combination of the two worlds. Great drawing, Gus. And then, this is really cute. Hold on, let me close this out. I love this. It's Mr. and Mrs. Minotaur. Just posing for a family. They're like, oh, hey, here's we're on the coast of the Amalfi Coast, and we're having a vacation, and the beach was really nice, and Mrs. Minotaur's not wearing a top, but it's okay because she's part cow, and we're just kind of having a fun time, and someone take our photo, all right? So that's Mr. and Mrs. Minotaur. Gus, I love this picture. It's so funny. Also, I like the idea that the Minotaur, instead of being beheaded cruelly by the awful Theseus, gets to find another person in his boat of having a cow head and a person body, and they find hopefully true love. I mean, although honestly, they do look kind of like, oh, here we are. But maybe that's better. Bulls get really excited. Probably cows do too. We don't want them to be worked up, so maybe just kind of like having a slow moment. Let's see what else we have here. Okay, this is another one who I'm going to ask this person later, please post this up somewhere online so I can at least link to it, because there's so many great details in this. This is from Addie, who sent us quite a bit of artwork recently. And this is so clever that I'm not going to be able to show you everything. It's called What Do Gods Do All Day? So we have this view. It's a cutaway view of a big house, right? And we can see on different levels of the house, this is kind of like a modern day take on the gods. The gods are doing, like, of course, in the basement are Hades and Persephone. And oh, look, Hermes is visiting because he's the only one who can cross over to the Underworld, right? Then we go up to the next level and we see Aphrodite. She's like kind of like looking at herself in the mirror. Apollo's doing like ballet, which I'm like, I couldn't remember I think we decided Apollo probably couldn't dance, but lately he's been dancing really good. Ares is like using a punching bag, and oh look, there's Hermes again visiting, because Hermes is everywhere at once. I think this dude over here, that's Dionysus playing video games or watching TV. I don't, because I guess he did. That's what he would do. We go up to the top, and there's Hephaestus, and man, who is that? Is that from behind? I think there's Artemis. I'm not sure who the person with black hair is, but there's Hermes again, because he's everywhere at once. And it just goes through this, and you can see outside, like Demeter's hanging outside in the garden, Poseidon's floating in the pool. I guess this person in the car appears Helios. I just love this. And there's so many details. So, Jamie, I'm going to ask if you can possibly post that somewhere online. Maybe you have an Instagram page, because I know people are going to want to see this up close. It's so funny. And then this is a simpler drawing, also by Jamie, but great. There's Hades carrying off Kore, or soon-to-be-named Persephone, in a chariot, and it just says, Hades doesn't have people skills. Yeah, instead of just, I'm just saying, as an adult who's had to ask people that I was, attracted to out on dates, it's very tricky. It's very scary. But you know what's much worse? Getting being invisible and then suddenly carrying them off on a horse and carriage. That's not a way to find true love. You just gotta scrape your courage and be like, hey, I like you. I think you're really funny. You want to go, I don't know, go get a soda? Nobody asks for sodas. I don't know. Don't take dating advice from me. Look at me. I'm sweating. I'm dripping sweat. To take advice from me, like, don't carry people off. That's kidnapping. It's illegal. You'll go to jail, and deservedly so. Let's see what else we have here. Oh, there's a few things about something else. And finally, I'm going to close with a comic from Megan. I mentioned Megan up front. Megan has created this whole separate mythology wherein she has shipped together both Athena and Hermes. They have 3 children of various mixes of their attributes. It's Bellona, Hermea, and I forgot the Almathea, perhaps, is the third. They have a pet owl, well, Athena already did, named Archimedes. And recently, Hermes has adopted a pet turtle named George. Like me. And so this is the first time, it's a comic, it's a 3-pager about Archimedes the owl and George the turtle meeting the 3 kids for the first time. So there's Athena in bed, she's holding their triplets, and Hermes is the proud dad. Big half-brother Pan's there, along with Grandma Maya, and she's holding the babies. And the comic, I can't read the whole thing. Oof, I can't even turn the page. It's kind of a funny comic. I don't know how many of you are siblings, or like, especially me. I'm an older brother, right? I remember this. It's basically Archimedes and George flipping out because they're like, wait, there's new members of the family? What does this mean for us? Are we going to get replaced? I mean, I've gone through this with my cats recently. My first cat, Birdie, she was the only cat in the world, as far as she knew, for a very long time, and she was my special buddy. And then I got 2 new cats who are both kind of evil, and you always hear them knocking stuff over. And it's kind of like that whole stressed out thing of like, oh my gosh, what's this going to do? And the 3rd page, you just see it's the thought balloons of George and Archimedes as they're both freaking out. I feel like it maybe kind of didn't end. There's like a word bubble that doesn't really go to stuff, but it's a really cute comic. Again, Megan, I hope that you can find like a website, or you can make an Instagram page where you can put all your comics up, because they are so good. They deserve to be read by more than just me holding it up for 2 seconds, as I'm talking and sweating. Guys, I was blasting the AC and like it stopped and I'm just already sweating like a lunatic. I'm going to take off my glasses. Okay. Thank you, everybody. If you would like to send me some of your drawings or poems or rock art or whatever, please send it to my email at georgeoconnorbooks@gmail.com. If you want to catch an episode you've missed or archive some old episodes, all of the episodes of Geek Speaks Greek, except for the first 2 lost ones, but we've replaced them with better ones, are up on my YouTube, youtube.com/user/George Olympians. Okay, I'm going to put my glasses back on so I can see. It is hot. It's hot, hot, hot. I think I'm just going to figure a way to keep the AC on and just, you guys just hear like a low rumbling in the background. So today, we're going to talk about Cerberus. Cerberus is, we all know Cerberus. He's, I was talking back when we first did some monsters. We did like the Minotaur, Mr. Minotaur. We did Medusa, we did the Cyclops. And I said like that was like the holy trinity, like kind of Greek monsters. They're all super famous. Cerberus needs to be in there too, so it's probably like the holy quadrilogy. Everyone knows Cerberus, the 3-headed watchdog. But he wasn't always 3-headed. His name means, this is funny. Okay, this is something I don't often share If I ever do a school visit or you see me talking live, I say this as a joke a lot of times, where I'll mention, hey, do you know what Cerberus means? And I'll take some questions to the audience, and people are like, three-headed dog. I'm like, no, it's not that. Or someone's like, evil, bloodthirsty monster. I'm like, no, that's interesting, no. And then I finally, because most of the time nobody gets it, although more and more people have been getting it, I tell them Cerberus means spotted. Hades named his dog Spot. And it's hilarious, right? It's like this giant guard dog is named Spot. Now today, when I was doing a little bit of research right before this episode, I found one website, I actually had to write this down because it was so funny, that claims it in fact does not mean spotted, despite what I've read everywhere else. That the name Cerberus perhaps means death demon of the dark, which I'm like, oh, that kind of makes more sense, right? Like, although, I mean, I like the idea that Hades is like, yeah, I just named him Spot. It's a dog name. Who cares? But like the name Death Demon of the Dark is so funny. It sounds like the worst heavy metal band that ever existed. Like, oh, have you got the new album by Death Demon in the Dark? It totally rocks. Like, it's so funny and over the top. So I don't know. I'll let you choose. Is it Spot? I like Spot. Is it Death Demon in the Dark? I also like that. So whatever your name is, that's Cerberus. Cerberus is the child of Typhon and Echidna. I mentioned Typhon a few times in this series here and there. Typhon is actually, I think by default, my favorite monster of Greek mythology because he is so all-encompassing. For those of you who don't know Typhon is, I'm going to call him a storm god, but he's like a storm monster. He embodies like storms the same way Zeus does, but he is enormous. He has 100 heads. Each of these heads speaks a different language, but they all breathe fire and vomit poison. Each head is a different creature. So there might be like a human head, then there might be like a gecko head, there might be an ant head. I don't know, I'm going with like very unimpressive animals here. Let's do a warthog, that's pretty cool. Maybe a dragon, I mean, awesome. But each head is a different head, right? And his body is so big that it fills the entire sky. And then he has these black wings that stretch out and scrape the stars. So this guy is almost incalculably large. One of the greatest monsters. Like, he can fight Zeus. And then he takes as his, let's call her a paramour, Echidna. And Echidna, all right, I'm going to call it. I'm calling it right now, folks. I'm doing Echidna as the monster on Friday. Friday, we're doing Echidna. Echidna is one of my favorites. She is a snake monster. There's not a huge amount of myth about her, but my design for her, I'm so happy with. Like, I spent so much time drawing Echidna, and she's only appeared in 2 panels of Olympians. And I want to draw her more, so I'm going to draw her that. So we're going to talk about her on Friday. And between Echidna and Typhon, sometimes you hear Echidna referred to as the mother of all monsters, right? And that goes all the way back to Hesiod. Now, if you've been watching the show for a while, you know I mention Hesiod a lot. So the first two, like, really the 2 oldest sources we have of written Greek myths are Homer and Hesiod. They're about the same time, but you can maybe make an argument Homer's a little bit earlier. For the most part, Homer's versions and takes on myth are a little bit different than what we tend to think of. He has, for instance, Aphrodite being the daughter of Zeus and a goddess named Dione, who doesn't appear anywhere else. It's like, who? So I tend not to go too much with the Homeric versions, though Homer does seem to mention Cerberus, but he just calls him a dog. He mentions specifically the story of Heracles having to go down. We'll come to that later. But Hesiod, as you know, I always say Hesiod above all else, right? Like, Hesiod is the guy who I go to for descriptions. I'm not actually using Hesiod's description of Cerberus because it's a little bit different than we're used to. This is super early. He's the first guy to use the name Hesiod. Cerberus. But he describes Cerberus as having 50 heads. It's like, wait, what? What? That's interesting, right? And there's some other stuff he says. He has the serpent tail, which mine does. And he also describes him as having a mane of snakes. Maybe the snakes are the heads? I don't know. So it's kind of an interesting take on him. But like I said, he's the son of Typhon and Echidna. Now, this is interesting, and I never really picked up on this. Looking over my copy of Hesiod's Theogony, which means the birth of the gods, it explains all this stuff. I noticed for the first time, if you look at my books, I have a list of the kids of Typhon and Echidna. And it's kind of like a who's who of greatest monsters of Greece, right? There's the Nemean lion, that's pretty famous. There is the Hydra, Heracles fights both of those. That's his first two myths, actually, his first two labors. There's Ladon, who is the dragon in the Hesperides. That's another one that Heracles has to tussle with. There's Cerberus himself. There's the Chimera, who is like, half goat. Well, I'm going to say a third goat, a third snake, and a third goat lion. I'm forgetting something. Oh, the Sphinx. The Sphinx is in there. And it's kind of like, you're like, wow, look at all these monsters. But actually, in the Theogony, not all of those are listed as the kids of Typhon and Echidna. And what is interesting is all the kids that Hesiod lists, they all have multiple heads, just like their dad. So you have the Chimera, who has 3 heads in most art, has a lion head, a goat head, and a snake head, right? You have the Hydra, who has as many heads as you feel like knocking off. They'll keep growing back, right? But tends to start off in most versions with either 1, which is easy, or 9. 9 is kind of like the older version. There is Cerberus, who, according to Hesiod, has straight up 50 heads, which must look ridiculous on a dog. And then there's this guy, Orthos. You might not have ever heard of Orthos. Orthos is very similar to Cerberus in that Orthos is a dog with multiple heads. But Orthos just has 2. Orthos is, this tying in again with Heracles. Do you remember the story of Geryones? Geryones is the guy who has 1 head but 3 bodies, and he has these oxen that Heracles must rescue. He appears for literally 1 panel in my version of it. He's not one of the more famous ones. It's just a picture of Heracles punching this dude with 1 head and 3 bodies, which is really weird. So he has a 2-headed guard dog named Orthos. So it's like, I guess in that house there's 3 bodies. No, there's 4 bodies. It doesn't work. I was thinking he's got enough heads there. But I feel bad for Orthos, right? Especially back in the day, because apparently Cerberus originally had 50 heads. Echidna's like, why can't you be more like your brother? He has 50 heads. You only got 2 Orthos. Yeah, go work for that Geryones guy. I don't know why she sounds like that. But, so, all the kids have multiple heads. Then, something like the Sphinx, who only has 1 head, part lion, part woman. According to Hesiod, the Sphinx is actually like the grandkid of Typhon and Echidna. The Sphinx is the child of Orthos, the 2-headed dog, and the Chimera, the 3-headed lion, goat, snake thing. Look, I don't know why I think this is interesting. I just thought it was kind of interesting. I'm getting kind of lost down a rabbit hole here. We barely even talked about Cerberus. So, Cerberus, for such a famous character, doesn't have an enormous amount of appearance in myth. That's not to say Cerberus isn't evoked constantly. Cerberus is the guard dog of Hades. I'm going to draw my version of Cerberus really quickly. Does this fit in the paper? Yeah. So, there's 1 head. I gave him, my Cerberus has kind of bat ears. That's a detail I kind of made up myself just to make him look more monstrous. But his ears are mentioned. We know that he is the guard dog of the Underworld. And the stories go, and it's in multiple places you'll see this. When you come down as a shade, when you have passed, and you're entering the Underworld for the first time, Cerberus puts his ears back and sticks his tail out, his tongue out, and wags his serpent tail, which is probably pretty creepy, but it's kind of cute, and he's super friendly and lets you in. It's if you're dead and you try to leave that Cerberus will literally tear you to pieces, which is like a trick. It makes a lot of sense. He's like, I'm not here to keep you out. I'm here to keep getting back out again. So here's the 3 heads of Cerberus. I gave him kind of pronounced fangs. I actually want to talk about something. My version of Cerberus, he kind of looks like a Doberman Pinscher. A Doberman Pinscher in the modern day is a very popular type of guard dog. They're very big, very intelligent, very fast. They take orders well, and they're scary. There weren't Doberman Pinschers yet. It's a much more recent breed. And this is something I just want to kind of talk about just because I'm the sort of guy who gets worried about this stuff. A lot of times in Olympians, I will draw dogs that didn't actually exist yet. One of my favorite stories in Olympians, do I have it here, is a story I got to tell in Hermes, in which we hear the story of the king of dogs. And it's the story that basically explains why dogs sniff each other's bottoms. And we see these 3 emissaries who are sent to Olympus to argue on behalf of dog kind. and it is a Malamute, a Pug, and a Yorkshire Terrier. None of those dogs existed back then. I drew that because these are dogs of members of my family. This was my sister's dog. This is my uncle and cousin's dog. This is my mom's dog. By the way, my mom's dog in real life is named Zeus. Look at that. Look at that thing. So I just got to confess. And just the same way, Cerberus doesn't actually, I mean, looks like a Doberman Pinscher, but I mean, isn't, because there weren't Doberman Pinschers yet. If you don't draw Cerberus's body, it looks like you're just drawing 3 dogs. An early version of the cover to Hades actually had just Cerberus's heads on it, and it looked like we just drew 3 dogs. We're like, okay, that doesn't work. And then I gave him a long lashing serpent tail. Serpent tail is a trait that goes back to like the earliest versions of him. Some people actually interpret that as the serpent's head is on the tail. But then he wouldn't be a 3-headed dog, he'd be a 4-headed dog. So I just drew it like it's a long tail. Also, it makes him look like a rat, which is kind of gross. I think rats are, I mean, they're very nice from what I hear from people who have pet rats, but ew, they're gross. So there's Cerberus. And I also draw him, when you see him, he's kind of enormous. He's a guard dog, but he's a guard dog for the gods. And the gods are different sizes, right? So if you look at the cover of Hades, people will often ask me, like, how come Cerberus is so small there? I'm like, oh no, Cerberus is still the size of an elephant. It's just that Hades is really huge at that point. He could be any size he wants. So really the only myth that I could think of, except for where he gets mentioned a lot, I guess he appears briefly in like stories of Orpheus, because like he goes down there and he lets Orpheus in, but Orpheus plays such beautiful music on the way out that I think it's in Ovid actually. They describe that he's like just smiling, like with his tongue out wagging his tail still because the music's so nice. So he does appear more than once, but his big moment, his big appearance in myth is in the Labors of Heracles. There are the 12 Labors of Heracles. There's originally 10. Let's see if I can list them off. So first there's the Nemean lion, his brother. There's the Hydra, his sister. The Cernaean hind, the Erymanthian boar, the birds of Stymphalos, the Aegean stables, that's where he used to clean up all the poop. The Cretan bull, who was the dad of Minotaur. The mares of Diomedes, not Diomedes the hero who we did recently. Diomedes, another guy who trained his horses to eat human flesh, and Heracles is so grossed out by this that he picks the dude up and feeds him to the horses, which point the horses are like, we don't like people anymore after they eat them, and they're cured. So it's a happy story, I guess, even though a guy got eaten by horses. There's the girdle of Hippolyta. She's the queen of the Amazon. Heracles has to steal that. Girdle's like a belt sort of thing you'd wear. The oxen of Geryones, who I mentioned. That's where Orthos, his brother, works for. And then the dragon of he has to get the apple of Hesperides. The Hesperides are the sacred garden of Hera, and it's guarded by this dragon, Ladon, who never sleeps. And so Heracles, I should talk about this really quickly. Heracles was made to do the labors by his cousin Eurystheus, who was working on the behest of Hera. Hera was trying to forge this ill-begotten son of Zeus into a great hero to improve his worthiness of coming to Olympus. And originally there was only supposed to be 10 labors. He had to do these 10 deeds. And he did the 10, but there was some debate about 2 of them. When Heracles killed the Hydra, it was basically decided that, Heracles didn't figure that one out. He brought along his nephew Aeolus, who's the guy who actually thought of the idea of burning the stumps. So kind of Aeolus solved that one. And then when he cleaned out the stables of the Aegean stables, he accepted payment for that. He took half the cows, or horses, cows. Yeah, cattle. And he wasn't supposed to accept payment, so he has to redo 2 of them. And his cousin Eurystheus is really, really bent out of shape at this point. And his last 2 labors are easily the hardest labors for Heracles to do. The idea behind the apples of the Hesperides is everyone knows Hera is the most implacable foe of Heracles. Even though she's doing this for his own good, she's not a super big fan. She's not going to let this dude just walk into her sacred garden, walk up to her sacred apple tree of golden apples and just walk off with a couple. And Heracles knew that too. He's like, I know Hera could look at me and just turn me into ash. So he has to work out a deal. This is when Heracles actually holds up the entire weight of the entire atmosphere so that the Titan Atlas can go and get the apples for him. As it turns out, the Hesperides, they actually are people. They're the daughters of Atlas. And they're like, hey, Dad's here. And they all have a good time. And he walks over and gets the apples. And he comes back to Heracles and he tries to trick him, but not very well. And Heracles tricks him again and gets the apples. So he kind of beats that one relatively easy. when King Eurystheus gets the apple, he's outraged. He thought for sure this was it. And he'd spent some, he's like, I thought I finally figured out the thing that Heracles would never be able to do. I can't believe this. And he flips out. And he gets so angry, he throws the apple on the floor, and he gets in Heracles' face, and he's like, go to Hades. Go to Hades and fetch me Cerberus. And that's exactly what Heracles does. Can you guys hear my cat's yelling in the background? I got caught in my bedroom. So Heracles goes down to the underworld. And, we've known a lot of heroes have done this. We've talked about Orpheus. Orpheus goes down there and does this. We've talked about Theseus. He goes down and does it. Doesn't end so well for him, but luckily for him, Heracles does too. And for a long time, no one hears of Heracles. And Eurystheus thinks he's finally won. He's like, yeah, I literally sent him to the place people go when they die. And even if he gets in, Cerberus is never going to let him out. Cerberus only obeys one being on the entire universe, and that is Hades. And then, one day, to Eurystheus' great chagrin, dragging this giant bucking dog, it's snorting, it's drooling poison, its tail is lashing around, it's growling at everybody every step of the way. Its mighty claws are dug in every step of the way. Step after painful step, Heracles drags this giant monster dog to the palace of King Eurystheus. And King Eurystheus, he's like, oh, well, you're done, okay, get that scary thing away from me. And it's his greatest, he literally went to the land of the dead and brought the guardian up. But there's a little bit more to that story, which is kind of cool. So, remember how I mentioned that Cerberus is mentioned in Homer himself? It's actually in the Odyssey. And if you remember when we did Odysseus a few weeks ago, I mentioned Odysseus is among one of the many heroes who goes to the land of the dead. And while he's there, he sees a lot of people that from before. He talks to Heracles. He talks to he doesn't talk to Medusa. He sees Medusa. He's like, oh, I can talk to her. But when he sees Heracles actually just straight up tells him, and this is, mind you, one of the earliest accounts we have of Cerberus. Like, he doesn't even have a name yet. He's like, yeah, I got the dog for Eurystheus, but joke's on him. Hermes and Athena helped me every step of that way. So I'm like, wait, what? Like, basically, he goes down to the underworld, and Hermes, who can traverse borders, is like, let me work this out for you. And works it out so he can take the dog back. And then he goes with him every step of the way, presumably invisibly, or just so fast nobody else sees, and helps him. And Athena does too. So you're like, oh, that's kind of... It's kind of cool because it's not super heroic, I guess. Like, he doesn't defeat the odds to the same degree, but he was clever. And I do like it when a hero is clever. There's other versions of the story, too. In some versions of the story, he goes down and he just appealed. Keep in mind, Heracles is the son of Zeus. And Zeus is on good terms with, don't believe Disney's Hercules, because that movie is the most wrong movie about mythology ever. It's so off. It's a fun movie, but it's like, man, nothing in there's accurate. Hades and Zeus get along pretty well. So basically, the son's like, Heracles is like, hey, can I borrow your dog? And Hades is like, yeah, of course. Or sometimes it's Persephone. She's like, let me talk to my husband. I'll settle this. He'll take care of it. But he gets permission to bring up the dog. There's also versions, they're lesser known, but they're kind of more exciting, where he himself wrestles this giant dog into submission, which is more heroic. And that's certainly, I'm sure, the story if you ran into Heracles at a bar or a festival. He would tell you that story and be like, yeah, and I flexed and I beat the dog up and I took it. But, come on, let's be honest. Hades is probably, take him out. It's been a while since he's had to walk. Here's a giant wheelbarrow to clean up after him when he makes a mess. And so that's kind of like the big story of Cerberus. Am I forgetting anything else here? I think I got it. This is a short one. I like the short ones. Doing Epic Hero Week was rough, where I had to talk. I like doing these like little one and dones, and it's just super fun. Now, before I take questions, start thinking of your questions. When I designed Cerberus, I didn't actually know that Cerberus meant spotted. That was something I learned after the fact. So I've often thought, like, if I had known that going in, how would I have drawn Cerberus? And so I think I would probably draw him a little something like this. Oh, it looks more like a cat, doesn't it? Can I say it, guys? I'm a cat person. And there's his little feet. He's like a little chihuahua. There's his snake tail. He's got spots. I mean, it's not as scary. I do want to show, and I'm going to do a little bit of a pitch here. My good buddy, Mike Cavallaro, has a really amazing book series, although there's only one out so far, but keep an eye out for it soon. We did a bunch of appearances together back when my book Hephaestus came out. Nico Bravo and the Hound of Hades. And you could see, it's basically, I don't want to give away too much of the story, but a young girl who's descended from a family of monster hunters has to go and make her name. She wants to kill a monster, so she's going to kill the most famous monster of all. She's going to kill Cerberus. And she goes on this quest. And Nico's this little guy who works at a shop for Vulcan. You all know Vulcan. That's the Roman name of Hephaestus. And basically he runs a shop where he makes stuff for gods. It's like if a god needs a new pair of shoes, they go to Vulcan's. They need a singing sword, they go to Vulcan's shop. And so Nico goes there, and he's accompanied by his friend who's a Sphinx, and his other friend who is this really weird, like spaced out unicorn. And they go on this adventure to save Cerberus. And I'm just going to find a page that doesn't give spoilers. So you just look at how beautiful Mike's artwork is. So if you like Cerberus, I recommend reading this. And also, if I'm pitching Mike's book, I'm going to pitch, hey, I have a new book coming out too. It's a politics book. It's called Unrig. I'm going to be doing a bunch of like online events, so just watch for it. It's also full of beautiful drawings, but I did them this time. So there, that's it. So let's take some questions. How do people get to the underworld? Asks Alice Sophia. Well, I'm assuming the easiest way to get to the underworld is to die. Once you die, Hermes appears, one of his 8 zillion jobs, and he takes your shade to the underworld. And he takes you to the far side of the river Styx, and hopefully after you die, someone puts a coin in your mouth, or maybe in your eyes, or in your pocket, or somewhere in your body, so you could kind of reach into your ghostly self and pull out this coin, and then you give it to Chiron, I said Chiron, wrong guy, very close. Chiron, who is the boat keeper, and he gives you a ride across the other side. And you go to the other side, you pass by Cerberus, who's all like, and happy and friendly, you're just never getting out again. That's the easy way. The uneasy way is there were various locations in the ancient Greek world that the ancient Greeks identified as places where you could travel to the underworld. There was one in Thessaly, there was one in Sicily. The one that Heracles goes to, I'm forgetting where it is. And in fact, it's not a big deal because like a lot of times the story would change depending which version was closer to you. And there would be caves that the people believed you could actually travel down. Sometimes it was done by a boat journey, but a lot of times you needed to have some sort of mystical guide or somebody who gave you some sort of information. When Dionysus goes down to the underworld, he does it in... Oh man, I literally just wrote this book. You think I'd be able to remember this? He does it somewhere like in Turkey. What is now Turkey, but at the time it wasn't yet Turkey. So there was different places to get to the underworld. The real hard part wasn't getting in. The hard part was getting past this giant chihuahua with 3 heads. Oh, I forgot. So, he is reminding me of I was going to show my sketchbook, and I forgot to get my sketchbook on hand today, so I'm not going to show it today, Yahi. I'm sorry. It's I think it's in my book bag. I would run away and get it, but I think that's going to... We'll see. Maybe I'll run and get it anyway. I have to let my cat out anyway. Chihuahuas are filled with rage, though. They would be great guard dogs. I kind of think... Okay, Chihuahuas are funny because they're like the size of our foot. But imagine a Chihuahua the size of an elephant with 3 heads. That would be arguably scarier than a Chihuahua, than a Doberman Pinscher that big. Because a Doberman Pinscher, like I said, is really smart, and it's a very restrained dog. Like, Chihuahuas are crazy. I see Chihuahuas go after animals like 300 times their size. Now imagine this thing. It would be insane. Is Loki going to be gender fluid in your Norse mythology books? Asked Little Serial. Yeah, because in some of the stories, Loki is. Loki... Not only is Loki gender fluid, Loki literally turns into a female. It's a female horse, mind you. But he turns into a female and has a kid. So Loki is truly gender fluid. Loki could be a good Olympian. He's so good at shape changing. He's not immortal. At least, he doesn't seem to be operating on the same level of power. Like, I've said this before, like, the Norse gods, we call them gods, and I think we think of them as gods, like the way that the Olympians are. But I think that's because we knew the Olympians first. And everybody's saying we, I'm saying, like, Western civilization. They're definitely on a different level. Like, and sometimes Loki seems to need help. He could turn into a fly, no problem. But when he turns into an eagle, he has to steal like Freya's wet feathered coat. It's weird. They're a little bit inconsistent with that. But yeah, he's going to definitely be gender fluid because he is. You have, in order to tell the stories, I'm keep calling him he because that's traditional. I guess they are. They are very gender fluid. The lens is a little bit hazy. Oh no. Maybe I should try to rub it. Man, I'm making a mess of things today. You know what I'm going to do? This is the height of unprofessionality. The height. I'm going to run away really quickly, get a sketchbook, and I'm going to get somebody to wipe off the lens. And I'll come back in like 2 seconds. How's that, huh? Nothing says, what a great show, like a guy running off to grab stuff and let out a cat. Better. Oh, better. Wow. I'm just going to admit that was probably sweat because I'm so sweaty. So allow me to present, this is my sketchbook. It looks super fancy. It's just a normal sketchbook that have fancy cases on it. By the way, I want to give a shout out to this. This is made for me by my good friend Leland Purvis. He's a great comics artist. You should look him up. He's like the most talented man I've ever met with tools. And one year for my birthday, he made me this leather case that slips over my sketchbooks. I carry my sketchbooks with me everywhere I go. And it's one of my favorite things ever. So in my sketchbooks, I'm just going to kind of flip through pictures. I just draw tons of quick pictures. A lot of the pictures you're looking at right now are just quick sketches I did of Masters of the Universe characters. Look at that scary... Oh, wait. It's this guy. Merman from He-Man. I was drawing my own versions of them. Sometimes when I'm doodling, at the end of the day, I've been drawing all day, I just kind of draw fun stuff. So I'll draw things I like to draw. Like I draw these quick drawings of Merman. There's Man-at-Arms, another Masters of the Universe character. I've been on a big Masters of the Universe kick. Some more snake monsters from... Well, no, that's a robot. That's a snake monster. I hope that eventually there's some stuff in here that actually looks like Olympian stuff. More snake monsters. Who is that? That's some minor character from Dionysus. I'm not sure who. I was just drawing background characters. Oh, this is a monster from another book I have coming up sometime soon. That's a little bit of a sneak preview for you guys. There's a drawing of Hestia. She looks a little bit more fiery in some spots of this book. This one's cool. Snake monster. And all these are really quick, and you'll see sometimes I don't quite finish them, and I just draw it as quickly as I can just to get down ideas. I'm going to skip to see if there's any stuff that looks... Because I'm working on a finished book now, sometimes my sketchbooks tend not to be dealing too much with the actual books. Then you'll see a lot of stuff like this. This is me working out different layouts of pages of Dionysus. And you will see a lot of variations. Sometimes I draw it up. This is actually a panel. I drew it out a lot more finished. You can see Hephaestus and Hestia are both looking at something in the fire, and Athena and Poseidon are watching on. Here's another panel. I just kind of work these panels out over and over again. Here's a really quick one where I had Zeus talking with Hestia and Demeter. Didn't finish one because I didn't think it was going anywhere. Here's another take on that same panel. I'll just keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over and over again until I get it just right. And I remember spending 3 or 4 days trying to get this one group of panels. I'm like, maybe I need to put Hermes in there. And I'm like, that drawing of Hermes isn't good, so let me stop drawing it. Maybe I'll draw, here's another take on that on that Zeus, Hestia, and Demeter panel. And then I didn't like that, so I drew another one. I just kept doing stuff like this. There's a drawing of Zeus working out the shadow that I would do on him. So that's what my sketchbook kind of looks like. Oh. There's a bit of Athena, and she's giving a piece of advice. What else do I have? I'm going to skip some stuff. Sometimes I just draw weird monsters. There, drew Frankenstein's monster. There's a Dracula. There's Skeletor. Oh, here. This is fun. I drew Bigfoot. So, I mean, that's kind of what my sketchbook looks like. There are hundreds of these at this point. I go through a sketchbook. Let's see. I started this one May 4th. And I am... Let's see. I'm nearly done with it, you can see. So I go through a sketchbook every 2 to 3 months. Oh, here's some more layouts. It's just tons of layouts and stuff. And a lot of it is just kind of quickie drawings. And I think that's the way for all of you people who are budding artists, who I know is like most of you, it seems, because of the amount of stuff I get. Have a sketchbook. Maybe you have a sketchbook you do really nice finished artwork in too. Have a sketchbook like this one that you're just let yourself goof up on, that you could do all the mistakes and draw all the silly things you want to do. I have so many questions. Would Cerberus have 3 bowls or just one big one? That is a great question, Ranka. I have a question in response. Do you guys think Cerberus... Do you think of Cerberus as like one monster or Cerberus like 3? Like, I used to try to think like how it would be fun if like maybe one was named Sir and one was named Burr and one was named Russ. Or... I don't know, because it is weird, because 3 heads, you know, the seat of the ancient Greeks actually thought the seat of the mind was in the heart, so they wouldn't have thought this. But we know that the seat of the mind is in the brain. So it's kind of like Cerberus is like 3 different creatures. So I would think one big bowl. I'm going to guess, because then you don't have to worry about the whole bowls getting moved out of the way and like maybe one of the heads can't get to the other ones. The middle head, I mean, it's actually, which head controls the body? There are a lot of questions to ask here. Would Cerberus use 1 leash or 3? I would have to assume it would have to be 3 because leashes tend to go on the neck, so Cerberus has 3 necks. So I'm going to say that one. Does it drink from the river Styx? Does he drink from the river Styx? Does he even need to drink? He's kind of an immortal monster. I would say, here's the thing. I don't even know if I know this answer myself. Does Cerberus have the intellect of a dog? Or does Cerberus have, like, is Cerberus way smarter? I suspect, given the fact that, like, Cerberus is, according to some sources, either the uncle or the brother of the Sphinx, and then we know the Sphinx is very smart and can tell, like, different, like, riddles and stuff. I would assume Cerberus is actually probably more as smart as a person, but I still think he probably drinks the river sometimes. Because, like, man, if you're down there for centuries, you're going to be like, I wonder what that tastes like. And, like, try it once. You're like, it's not bad. It tastes like, I don't know, soda? Ugh, I don't like soda. Yay, Sketchbook. Oh, Nika's there. Hi, Nika. Ranka asked, does Cerberus pee on everything in the Underworld? Man, I hope not. I mean, I hope that like Hades took the time to like Underworld break him and be like, all right, here's the thing, Cerberus. I get you want to mark your territory, and I get the entire Underworld is your territory, but I'd really appreciate it if you don't urinate on everything, because the Shades, they don't know any better. They don't even know to close their mouth. It gets disgusting. I have to look at these people all day. Please stop doing that. If you got to pee on anything, go pee on Achilles over there. I don't know why. Why Achilles? I don't know why. Let's see what else we got. My father would be angry if I waste all that blank spaces. Oh, so I get it. In reference to the sketchbook. And it is kind of like, okay, like for instance, like this, I drew like a pretty cool werewolf. I liked it so much, I left the page next to it empty. I get it. Sometimes you feel like that you're wasting pages, but it's nice to give your sketches room to breathe. My sketchbooks that I have here, let's see if there's a new page I can open up to that you haven't seen yet. Yeah, snake monsters. Draw a lot of snake monsters. I think I pay about $6 per sketchbook. I'm not sure what that translates to in Korea, but they're very inexpensive sketchbooks. And it's worth it to have, you end up having the entire sketchbook. You don't want to have every inch necessarily covered, because also pencil kind of rubs up against each other and rubs up on the other side. If I do a drawing I really like, I tend not to draw on the back of it or facing it, because then it kind of rubs off. It's nice to have that. It's nice to have a sketchbook that you can make mistakes in and not have to worry about things like cost. So have a really cheap sketchbook if you can. Maybe some you could even scrape together from like the change that you get in your pockets too, because it's not that expensive really. What is he saying to them? Ooh, I'm not sure what that's in reference to. Are they mostly pencil drawings, and how do you classify them? Okay, more sketchbook drawings. So in my sketchbook, I almost always draw in one of 2 different pencils. So you've seen the vast majority of these are just kind of general lead pencils. Do I have one? I see one right over there. I might leave the screen again to show you. But then there was a few, like the Bigfoot I showed you was actually drawn, or this is a picture of a weird monster I designed when I was a kid, and me. And I drew that in Conti crayon. But they both, I'm going to be right back. I'm right over here. You can still hear me. These are the pencils I used to draw in my sketchbook. Because I like to draw really fast and I don't want to be stuck doing crazy details, I use very thick lead. So you can see how thick these pencils are. Like, look next to my finger. It's like this crazy fat pencil. That's what I used to draw all the lead parts. Oh, I thought I grabbed one of the crayon ones. And I put a Conte crayon, which is a type of drawing utensil in the other one. And I keep it kind of fat and not sharp so that I don't get crazy doing details. Because sometimes people do that and they get so obsessed with drawing little details that they forget to draw the whole part of the drawing. My sketchbook is a place for me to make mistakes and to work out big ideas. When I want to do something that's more finished, I do it sometimes on other pieces of paper or maybe even a special page of a sketchbook. But primarily a sketchbook is a place for me to be as free as possible in my thoughts. So I don't want to tie myself up with a really sharp pencil doing perfect little details because then I lose sight of the forest for the trees, you know? I'm not thinking about the big picture. I'm thinking about a little tiny bit and how many little hash marks I could put in it. I think the question is Cerberus immortal? I believe so. There isn't, I mean, although, you know, again, to throw it back to my friend Mike, this is a book about somebody who's trying to kill Cerberus, so maybe Cerberus can be killed. It might be that Cerberus just is really long-lived, but can be actually killed by physical forces, and nobody would be dumb enough to do that, because think about it, if you kill the guy, you know, I'm going to change off the Chihuahua picture and put on a more serious-looking Cerberus. If you kill the guy who's keeping all the dead from coming back to the earth, you're going to have yourself a zombie apocalypse, or at least a very bad haunting, because every single thing that's ever died, that's gone to the underworld, is going to just be able to wander back up, and that's going to be very awkward. Very awkward. And here's a question, and I think this is in reference to the Judgment of Paris. When Eris took her apple, her golden apple, you know, one of many golden apples that we're mentioning today, and threw it and said for the most beautiful, we know that Aphrodite, Athena, and Hera all went for it once. And WHS124 asks, how come Artemis didn't do it? I've said before, I don't feel like it was really a contest about beauty. I think it was a power contest. And the thing about Artemis, if you look at her mythology and you look at her character, Artemis isn't too big on the group things. And she certainly doesn't care about her looks. If anything, there are myths where she's kind of embarrassed that she is so beautiful. She would rather be a little bit more like rough and tumble looking. She can't help that she's just incredibly gorgeous just by virtue of being a goddess. She wants to look like more like a rough and tumble tomboy sort of character, and she just can't. I mean, she could have changed shape, but you know what I'm saying. I don't think she cares. She doesn't play the games of politics on Olympus. We talked about this. Like, people were asking in an episode a while ago, like, who would she be friends with on Olympus? And I was kind of like, wow, you know, she's friends with her brother and she's friends with her mom, but she really keeps to herself. She doesn't play the different games of the gods and goddesses. When she first met her dad, when she was a little goddess, and he's like, what can I do for you, little Artemis? And she's like, give me 50 Oceanides, 100 nymphs, 50 dogs. I'm going to run through the woods. I want a bow and arrow that's really great. I want a chariot to ride to. I want to kill things, and that's it. I don't want any men. I don't want any boys in my life. I don't want to have to marry. I just want to be left alone to do my thing. And that's pretty much what she wants. So someone says for the most beautiful, she's like, yeah, whatever. You guys go for it. I don't care. I'm just going to go over here and go talk to this sheep or something. Oh, sheep? Deer. That's more wild. Do monsters go to the underworld when they die? Cerberus would see Hydra. Hi, sis. So here's actually something that's interesting, right? So Hydra doesn't die. I don't really show it in my books, but Hydra has one central head that is immortal, which this would seem to lend to me to the idea that Cerberus is immortal too. So in the myth, I kind of cut it out just because it's a little bit long in the telling. But in most versions of the story, Heracles beheads the Hydra's various heads, and as he does it, Aeolus is burning the stumps until he gets down to that one central head, which is immortal and can't be cut off. And what he finally does at that last bit is he picks up this enormous boulder and places it on top of the Hydra and pins her underneath it. And that's where she still is. Now, the question is, does each of her severed heads maybe go down there? Maybe there's just like this pile of wriggling Hydra heads in the underworld? That would be awkward. I don't know. But you know, what? The Nemean lion is often mentioned as a sibling to Cerberus, and Nemean lion definitely gets killed. And who else is there? Orthos, I think Orthos gets killed. I'm not actually sure. I think in some versions Heracles kills Orthos. Orthos is the two-headed dog. The Dragon of Hesperides, Ladon, is also immortal. So I'm going to lean towards Cerberus being immortal. Let's see what else we have here. Oh, this is a good question. So Ranka writes, I saw your post about the Thing, the Marvel Comics character. What is an inker? So earlier this week, a very famous comic book artist named Joe Sinnott died. You maybe haven't ever heard of Joe Sinnott. I hope you've heard of Jack Kirby. Jack Kirby is a very famous comic book creator. He's called the King. He co-created so many famous characters. He co-created Captain America, the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, Thor, Iron Man, like almost all the Marvel characters except for Spider-Man. He co-created, and Doctor Strange. He co-created, like with either Stan Lee or Joe Simon or his other partners. He was a penciler. And a lot of times in comics, I'm different. And this is a more modern thing for the most part. When you open up an issue of Olympians, a book of Olympians, every single thing in there is something I did myself. I draw it out in pencil, I trace it over in ink, I color it on computer, I do everything, I write it myself. But traditionally, if you read like an old superhero comic, like the Fantastic Four, which I drew a picture of just the Thing's skin, just his orange rocky skin, there would be a whole bunch of people who did that. It would be co-plotted by both Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. Stan Lee wrote all the dialogue and filled in bits like that. Jack Kirby would pencil it, meaning he would actually just, similar to what you see in my sketchbooks, he would just draw everything out in pencil. But it wouldn't be done in ink. And then Joe Sinnott actually would take a pen and ink, and he would take sometimes the actual original pages of Jack Kirby, maybe sometimes they were stats of it or copies. Actually, I was probably writing the original papers. And he would trace over everything. And trace doesn't say it right. I should say he would embellish it. He would clean up. He would make all those pencil lines permanent in ink. And he inked most of Jack Kirby's work, especially on the Fantastic Four. He inked the Fantastic Four. Joe Sinnott inked the Fantastic Four for from the beginning, from Jack Kirby when it started with #1 until issue 300 or something, well after Jack Kirby had left the title. And he was just this guy who would just take Jack Kirby's beautiful pencils and make them really tight looking and beautiful. And so Jack Kirby passed away many years ago. Jack Kirby died in, I think, 1991. But Joe Sinnott was still alive. And Joe Sinnott still would do work right up until the end. He was a really talented man who would still... He didn't draw the first thing you saw, but the finished artwork you saw in a Marvel comic, and I guess he probably worked for other publishers too. He would be if you picked a book of Joe Sinnott, he was the guy. It was his lines you saw, and he did he drew the first. He did so many first appearances: Black Panther, so much stuff. He was just such a great artist, and so he passed away, and it was very sad. So I drew a picture of just the Thing's skin, because when people think Joe Sinnott, they think of him and Jack Kirby and the Fantastic Four, and it was specifically that texture. The Thing was this orange rocky superhero, and I just typed a picture of that. That's a fun question. Thank you. Can Cerberus bring back the dead with one of his heads? I like that question. I don't know, but I think maybe that'd be worth seeing it. I guess he could, right? He could carry somebody out. And then see, we have time for one more question from CVQ Llama. I've used Hestia's designs as inspiration for many of my characters. One is also the oldest of her siblings. Another one is named Solia. She's related to a character made. This is like Zeus. I can't wait to see this. By the way, CVQ Llama has posted some of his comics on their page. Take a look at them. They're really great. I love it if people just kind of see each other's stuff and follow it. So we're just about out of time here. I hope I looks like I had some more questions. I hope I didn't miss your stuff. If you have a question you really want to ask, and Silver Surfer, yeah, Nika mentioned Silver Surfer is also a Joe Sinnott and Jack Kirby great drawing. Send it to me. Oops, it's the wrong one. Send me your question if I didn't get a chance to ask it. Send it to me at georgeoconnorbooks@gmail.com. You can catch my old episodes here. And join me back here at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Instagram on Friday, where I am going to do Echidna. A lesser known but super duper vitally important monster of Greek mythology. The mother of Cerberus and everybody else we mentioned. And one of my designs I'm most happy with. So we're going to do a lot more drawing in that episode than just one picture like this and then a weird chihuahua. So everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. And I'll see you all this Friday. Bye. Thanks a lot.